You know that feeling when it's storming in the middle of the day? There's a great flash of lightning, and all of a sudden, the power goes out. No internet, no lights, no Netflix. But there's a strange feeling of relief. The control we all had over our day is gone, but so is the burden. We gain a freedom to connect with the world around us. In Nashville, it's usually thunderstorms that bring in that scenario. But in the Northeast, in places like rural Massachusetts, it's snow. From November to early April, people have to plan everything around it. They have their snowplow guy on speed dial.
The weather impacts every single human being on Earth. It's the one topic that you can't get away from. It's like breathing. Good morning, peeps. Just a quick note to let you know that we should see more in the way of sunny periods today.
This is Dave Hayes. He lives in western Massachusetts, and he's reading one of his online weather reports.
For Sunday. Have a great day.
He posts these things on his Facebook page called Dave Hayes, the Weather Nut. It's read by thousands of people all over the Northeast.
He has quite a following. It's like he's the weather guru. And people who follow him love him.
I don't even mess with the newsman anymore because Dave knows.
I'm Jacob Lewis, and from Nashville Public Radio, you're listening to Neighbors, a show about what connects us. Today, this guy Dave, the weather nut. Producer Sara Brooke Curtis brings us his story, the story of a man who has a personal touch to something that brings us all together. Here's Sara.
But why? Like, what is he providing that other people aren't?
I don't know. I don't even know what this guy's background is. He just has this passion for the weather. And that passion's contagious.
This is my mom. We're sitting in her kitchen, and I can't quite put my finger on how big and yet specific Dave's impact is on this region. My mom is a big fan of Dave's.
And I don't know the weather people here, but I know Dave the weatherman. Oh yeah, that's the one with the wig. I know.
In fact, it was my mom who first told me about Dave. Shortly after I moved back to this area where I grew up in western Massachusetts, I was riding in a car with her and my dad. It was the middle of winter and it was snowing really hard. We weren't sure if we should turn around or keep going. And then my mom got this excited look on her face and said, "Let's see what the weather nut has to say." I looked at her puzzled. She couldn't believe that I didn't know who the weather nut was. So she giddily opened her Facebook app on her phone. After reading a few of the weather nut's storm updates, she felt confident that we could keep going. But my introduction to Dave didn't stop there. She spent the next hour reading his posts aloud, along with all of the comments that community members were writing. This area is small enough that I recognize the names of some of the commenters, a parent of one of my elementary school friends, my 7th grade Spanish teacher, a friend from college, a hardcore musician that's been around here forever. Who was this guy, and why did people care about him so much?
I had dreams about seeing 3 tornadoes on the horizon, and I always get snow dreams actually in the fall because I'm getting, I want to see it snow. I had a pretty depressing childhood, and the cadence of the way that the snow fell and looking at it and how it hit my eyes was just very peaceful and calming and relaxing. You know, when it's steadily raining, it's very calming. And I like the sound of sleet too. I like the sound of ice pellets pinging on the window.
Dave has over 20,000 online followers. He posts weather reports at least twice a day, writing them from his L-shaped bedroom. It's in a house he shares with an 80-year-old couple. It's a financially viable arrangement that works for now. Dave has no 4-year meteorology degree. He's not on TV. He just writes these meticulously researched posts. But there's more to them than data. Dave's a musician and comes at the weather as a poet would.
What's the deal with the haikus?
Oh, I don't, that's just something that happened. I just, I like writing, and at heart, I'm an artist.
So here's one. Stare at the snowpack. Sunshine shows a colorful cosmos of light points. I like imagining all the locals around here, reading them with their morning coffees.
Snow? Nay. There's no snow.
Nay.
It's a crystal
There's no
storm.
snow.
It's a crystal storm.
It's a crystal storm.
Air geometry.
Science.
Air geometry.
Air geometry.
And geometry.
I just started seeing them as a little way to just kind of express myself and express my more internal side.
Dave's friend Bill Dwight is the president of the Northampton City Council. As someone who knows Dave in real life, he sees his online persona as being authentic to who the weather nut really is.
What he's done that's particularly remarkable, not just relative to the weather, is that he's used social media, which is something that actually, while on one hand gets a lot of people engaged with other people online, it's really impersonal. There's rarely any connection. That's why it's just kind of an orgy of snark. And he's the antidote to snark. So here is a person who speaks genuinely, thoughtfully, and sincerely online. And that's something you just don't find as a rule. So he's accessible, he's thoughtful, he's there.
This time that it'll slow down and turn into one of those 2 or 3 day nor'easters. At any rate, a big snowstorm with dangerous conditions this afternoon.
I was living in Eastern Mass, and me and my mom were at a friend's house in a neighboring town, and I was watching Bob Copeland, who was an old-school Boston meteorologist.
Now back to Jack.
As Bob mentioned, he'll be back later in the midday.
This is in the early 80s. I was 12. There were severe thunderstorms coming through the area, and I was watching the radar that he had, and it had all these bright, beautiful colors on it. For some reason, just something snapped, and I was just fascinated by that. I was like, wow, to see like the weather represented on a screen. And then in 5 minutes later, what I saw on the radar blew overhead, and we had a really bad thunderstorm come through. And it just something clicked in my brain that I just, all of a sudden, I just started paying attention and becoming more and more interested as time went on.
The years went by, and Dave ravenously read books and regularly researched local weather systems. He eventually tried sharing some of his findings on his personal Facebook page, but he thought he was annoying his friends, so he quit. But a giant tornado hit the area, and he learned that people were in fact depending on him.
We were looking for you, like my personal friends on Facebook, like we're trying to find you and see what you had to say about it and stuff.
So he started a simple little page, Dave Hayes, the Weather Nut.
It wasn't this big thing that I thought about, like, what's the strategic name to give myself? I was just like, I'm a weather nut.
The breaking news this hour, Hurricane Sandy will make landfall very, very soon. Some 60 million people in the United States are going to feel the storm's impact.
In 2012, Hurricane Sandy hit the East Coast.
Up until that time, it was just like 150 or 200 Facebook friends.
He wasn't even posting every day, but his insight into the region and the effects Sandy would have jumped him quickly to 600 followers.
I watched people start to share my updates, and I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, I just didn't understand what was happening.
Good afternoon, everybody. Another band of heavier precipitation is moving.
Be careful driving in any heavy snow, sleet, or freezing rain this morning.
A blizzard got him up to 1,000 followers. He decided to up his game, post more often, and take it seriously. And right around that time, he got laid off from his sales job. He used his free time to report around the clock, and his following grew to about 10,000 people.
From that point on, I was just like, I have to do this. It just felt compelled to do it.
Dave was collecting unemployment and really wanted to figure out how to turn his weather obsession into a job. But he was aware of how he appeared without a meteorology degree.
Based on just the prevalent attitude that I've seen on social media from meteorologists about what they call social media-rologists. Social media-rologists, right? So they also call them weather weenies. Like there's some disdain, I think. And I'm not saying any of the meteorologists in Western Mass feel that way. I've just seen it like in general online.
So when Dave decided his best course of action was to raise support by crowdfunding, he was a little worried.
There was people who were just like, oh, this is ridiculous, go get a job.
But it worked. He raised enough to live off of, barely. But the reason it worked is that this poetic weather geek was becoming somewhat of a local celebrity. The Weather Nut was an answer to a trivia question at a local bar. He had a waffle special named after him at a breakfast place. He was even voted the best local meteorologist in a popular local newspaper.
Even though I'm not a meteorologist, which is why I put on my header graphic, I said local meteorologist category, so no one thinks I'm trying to represent myself as a meteorologist, which I'm not.
And to top it all off, a local songwriter even wrote a song about him that played on a local radio station.
Dave Hayes, the weather guy, is scanning the sky to see if it's gonna bring us snow today.
I don't know how he would do in a room full of his fans, but I think he can have an intimate relationship with his fans online.
I've never even seen him. I wanted to look at his face, but I kind of don't want to know.
But some kid is dying for a snow day.
I don't feel called to be like, hey, I'm a celebrity. I'm out in the, look at me, and doing all these functions and stuff. I had people ask me to do stuff like that early on, and I said no.
And so we gather around the Facebook Hive. We give where our passions lie. Pass it
It's weird to have to promote yourself and to assert your value. Whatever. I'm a complicated person. Part of me is extroverted and part of me is introverted.
Through Facebook, Dave has found the perfect medium. He can be totally himself, impact a lot of people, and do so from the privacy of his own bedroom. But his independence comes with a cost.
I have to respond whenever the weather happens, and so I have to make a lot of sacrifices in my life to do that. There's many, many times where I'd like to go out and see music or hang out with friends or whatever, and I'm like, nope, it might be severe weather that night, I can't do it. I gotta stay in the saddle.
If there's a big storm coming, he'll just stay up all night.
Well, people really rely on him.
They do really rely on him.
Because they trust him.
I rely on him.
Yeah.
One of my missions is this, it's the same as the National Weather Service, is to help protect life and property. I want to give information that's going to help people do that, and also, help with their plans and stuff.
Do you feel really responsible?
Yeah, I feel totally responsible, and I tell people that, and sometimes they're like, what are you talking about? Like, it's the weather, it's going to do what it does. I feel compelled to do it, but, I'm well into my middle age, and I worry about career and whether this is something that can actually become an adult living for me, and then if it's not, that on one level I might be wasting precious years where I could be developing something that could actually feed me and actually maybe allow me to have a home someday.
But according to his friend Bill, the fact that Dave does his own thing is exactly what makes him so appealing.
You can get an idea of his excitement sometimes his melancholy. The spectrum of human emotion exists in his transmission. Now, you're not going to get that from the weather person Tanya or Kyle or Steve on television. That's not going to happen. They're in front of a green screen. They got to get through their weather in about 2.5 minutes, and they've got to make it look appealing when it's in between the car crashes and the other calamities that we face. Dave is actually a human being having a conversation with you, albeit a conversation with apparently thousands of people who are watching him or reading him on Facebook.
Traditionally, with TV weather broadcasts, it's a one-way street. You turn on the TV and you consume the information, and that's the end of the story. Whereas with social media, I'm able to go back and forth with people and communicate with them on a person-to-person level.
How many people hear back from their weather person?
I'll see threads that just form and just go off on their own. The people know each other and like, how you doing up there? And
I love reading the comments, and sometimes I recognize people on there, and I think that's funny too.
Heard the peepers last night, and how that lightens my heart.
Wondering if you have any thoughts, Dave, on plowing driveways. Maybe there's an art to when and how. We're new to having a driveway, haven't moved here from the Boston area.
I'll be glad for a drying day tomorrow. My parking space is a hog wallow. Salamander weather.
In your opinion, Dave, when do you think it'll be the best time to start planting outside? I don't want to take the chance with this New England weather.
Just wondering what the weather's going to be like in Boston tomorrow. Hashtag Red Sox home opener.
Worms all over the driveway this morning.
On a strikingly beautiful evening, Dave will ask readers to post photos of the sunset from their windows. Images of pinks and purples will flood onto his timeline, followed by exclamations by mostly middle-aged people with a heavy hand for emoticons. The comments are where he reaches the community and the community reaches him. You could spend hours getting to know this area, these people, and their reliance on Dave, just by reading these.
So the thing is, the weather, of course, is the most banal talking point that we actually have. You know, it's if you're stuck in an elevator and you're going up many floors with a stranger, the only thing you can come up with, of course, is talking about the weather. Dave Hayes reminds us why it's actually part of our shared experience, and he facilitates that conversation.
Anyone can consume weather information, but to have somebody that has some knowledge that's helpful and go back and forth about it, you know, you don't get that anywhere in terms of the weather. Like, that just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen on TV. It doesn't happen with apps. Apps just give you this pretty summary display and tell you that a storm's coming by 7:19 p.m. But there's no human element there. It's just information.
Dave starts every post with a good morning or good afternoon, everybody. He knows and is passionate about this area in a specific, singular, and granular kind of a way. It's like the difference between someone just generally knowing your name and where you live, and someone who knows the origin of your name and the secret swimming hole by your road. He talks to you like he knows you, and thus people offer up stories about their pets, their allergies, their gardens. People are compelled to share bits of themselves with Dave because he shows up for them every single day.
It's not just the weather.
Neighbors is from Nashville Public Radio and produced by me, Jacob Lewis. Special thanks to Sara Brooke Curtis. The show's editors are Emily Siner, Mack Linebaugh, and Anita Bugg. Music in this story by Jason Leonard. This song is by Jason Goforth. And the song Dave Hayes the Weather Guy, which I will link to on the website, is by the band The Neilds. Neighbors is a member of The Herd. Find out more at theherdradio.com. That's HEARD. I'm Jacob Lewis, and I'm reminding you to get to know your neighbors.